Yes. Okay, you can find your seat now, or find a seat. Okay, a couple of things I want to highlight for you. This Friday night, say with me, this Friday night. Thank you for that one. This Friday night at 5:30, we will be doing our purple chairs. And again, this is an opportunity to hear from our senior pastor, Lynn Winters, about the vision that God has given him for our church this year. This is a ministry of Cornerstone 45 Plus. It reaches out to everyone, but it's a ministry of. So it's great to hear what is God saying to him this year and what can we get behind in faith and really be a part of. And so you can be a part of that by texting one word, purple chairs, to 21999. That's 5:30, and it will be in the Adventure Port, which is our brand new children's building. What better place to talk about vision than in our brand new children's building that we just built that has caused the kids to want to bring all their friends to church? How many know that's a good thing? So again, that's this Friday night, 5:30. The second thing is mark your calendars for June 21st. We're going to go to the river. We're going to either kayak or paddleboard. If you can't swim, then please don't come. We don't want to be responsible for anyone. So, but again, do we have a registration for that yet, Heather, or no? Yes, we do. We have a registration for that. So we're going to meet up. We're going to tie all those things together, but that's why we'd like you to register. We'd like to know how many would be a part of that. My kids bought me a paddleboard a couple years ago. It's about 20 feet long, so it can fit me. So we'll have a good time. So I want to encourage you to be a part of that. Again, we're going to do some fun things in this summer. Got an ice cream social we're going to have coming up. A lot of other fun things we're going to do because we want to make sure that we stay connected throughout the summer. And we know people go in and out of town. I was talking to Christine. I need to go to the beach at least once during the summer. That's where I was born. Santa Barbara, California, right on the beach area, literally a mile from the beach. And so it refreshes me. So we know you go in and out of town, but we want to stay connected through the summer. And I'm excited that we're beginning this brand new series on the book of James. If you have your Bible, there's notes in front of you. You don't necessarily have to, but if you want to, just open to James chapter 1. And we're going to begin to learn about James. I'm going to review just quickly what this first slide is. The book of James is sometimes called the Proverbs of the New Testament. The book of James practically and faithfully reminds Christians how to live, gives us wisdom we need to navigate life in a way that honors God, from perseverance to true faith, to controlling one's tongue, to submitting to God's will, to having patience. This book aids reader in living authentically and wisely for God. And so that's why I thought it'd be great to go through this book together. We're going to have about at least 7 weeks of this, and we're going to have a good time together as we learn together some practical tools that you can use. And that's what it's all about to me. Theology is great, and I love that. There's a place for that. But I want to be practical with what God has for us, if that makes sense. Oh, is this in the way here? I can actually use it as a pointer. This is for you. So, just to give you some backdrop, and then we'll jump right into it. Stephen, one of the first church martyrs, was killed around 30 to 36 AD. And right after his death, this verse, Acts chapter 8, verses 1 to 2, describes what happened right after his death. On that day, it's right after his death, great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem. All except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned his death. So we see that James basically is writing this letter in the backdrop of what's going on. And that's why I'm pointing this out, because I want you to understand why he's writing this letter. And James has 3 main thoughts in this chapter, and they all center around the same thing. And that is this: difficult times will arise for all of us. Turn around the table and say, difficult times will arise for all of us. And here's the thing I see is, if we understand that, we don't think we're in this by ourselves. And Jesus came along and he actually said this in Matthew, and we pointed this out last week, Matthew 5:45, and he says that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. And again, sun is about two things. It's about growth, it's about goodness, but it's also about extreme heat, and it's about things dying. Rain is about health and blessing, but it's also about flooding, and found in Luke chapter 6. So what he's saying here is Jesus, this is his words. He says, life is filled with difficulty, and it happens the same to the good and the bad. And so I think it's important for us, because we look at things and we wonder, why is this happening to me? I'm doing everything good for God, and why is this happening to me? So if bad things happen unexpectedly, James is telling us, how do we manage those moments? And that's the backdrop I want to talk about tonight. James is saying, if bad things happen to us unexpectedly, how do we manage those moments and come through the other side successful? And so we're going to open up to James chapter 1, and I'm going to read the whole passage we're going to discuss tonight, and then we'll go into it. And we'll dive through it and really try to understand, what is James trying to say here? In James 1, 2 through 8, he says, count it all joy, my brethren, when you meet trials of various kinds. When was the last time you said, my tire's flat, I'm late to work, my boss is about to fire me, I'm so excited today. We'll talk about that in a second. Count it all joy, my brethren, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect, complete, and lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like the wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Count it all joy. When I read this, I'm like, this is against what I believe. Count it all joy, until I realize what he's really trying to say, and we're going to point that out tonight. The first thing is the word count. Count means to hold this opinion. What he's saying is I want this opinion to govern your life in what you're about to go through. I want this opinion to lead you and to guide you. I want your soul to realize that if your soul doesn't have joy, there's going to be an outcome that's not going to be good for you. And he's starting with that by count it all joy. I'm like, I would probably, I think sometimes here's where we make a mistake. We get a flat tire and we go, oh God, thank you for this flat tire. It doesn't say that in the Bible. Come on now, it doesn't say that. Hey, thank God my dishwasher broke. Thank God I'm about to be fired. It doesn't say that. And so I wanted us to realize, because let us first of all get rid of this idea that is not biblical, because 1 Thessalonians chapter 5:18 says, what does it say? In what? Does it say for everything? It says in. While you're going through it, that's the time to give thanks, but not for it. And I think we get lost there because we don't realize, we just read it, the rain falls on the what? Just and the unjust. It falls randomly. And so thanking God for something that happens randomly seems self-defeating, doesn't it? It says in everything, give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ. So it says, count it all joy. Count it all joy. Then he goes on, and the word all joy means this: the experience of gladness which dispels gloom. Count it all joy, the experience of gladness. Hold this opinion, hold this viewpoint, let this guide your life, the experience of gladness that dispels gloom. That's what he's saying. So the question I asked, and I don't know if you asked that, is why? Why do I need Why does James start out, and why do you and I need to count it joy when I'm about to go through this situation? I don't know about you, when I know that a difficult situation is coming, I usually grit my teeth and I go, oh, no, not again. Anybody like that? Just me and a few of you, the rest of you all liars. Just kidding. I mean, but we don't embrace it. And here's why he's telling us to count it all joy. Here's why he's saying this, count it all joy. It's found in the reality of this. Joy is the strength and the resilience of our lives. Nehemiah says it this way, and we have that. Nehemiah 8:10. This day is holy to the Lord. Do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your what? So I did a little bit of dive psychologically about the power of joy, and here's what I found out. Joy can significantly enhance your ability to navigate difficult times. I don't know about you, I love it when science backs up the Bible. Joy can significantly enhance your ability to navigate difficult times by fostering resilience, boosting your immune system, and promoting mental well-being. Isn't that cool? James is going, guys, joy is what you need when you're about to get into the middle of this thing, whether it's a difficult situation, whatever we're going to describe in a second. But joy is what you need in order to walk through the situation. Ferguson, a PhD, said this: joy triggers the pleasure center of our brains. Then our bodies pump out chemicals that make us feel good. At the same time, joy lowers our stress hormones and tells our body to calm down. Smiling and laughing can actually reduce physical pain, relax muscles. Joy helps us think more creatively, bounce back from negative emotions and thoughts, and generally improve our well-being. And the Bible says, count it all joy. What he's saying is, guys, what you need to make it through what you're about to walk through is joy. And so the first thing you need to realize is, how do I hold that opinion of joy? That's what he's saying. Hold this opinion of joy. And we're going to tell you how to do that in a second. But the thing that is, it says, count it all joy. And then it says, when you meet trials of various kind. I love this word meet because it doesn't mean what it means. Here's what it means: to come across a hazardous or negative situation by accident, to experiencing somewhat suddenly something that is bad or difficult. Two hikers were hiking in the woods and they came around the corner and a grizzly bear was right in front of them. And the one hiker immediately dropped to his knee and unzipped his backpack, and the other hiker said, and he pulled out a pair of tennis shoes, and the other hiker says, what are you doing? You can't outrun that bear. And he says, I don't have to, I just have to outrun you. What it's saying is, in life, and here's what all of you know in this room, there are things that happened you didn't see coming. Anybody can say that's true? You've been around you guys in this room been around the earth long enough to know there are things you planned for, things you thought about, and things that happened you didn't plan for. And James is going, when something suddenly happens that is difficult or hard, before you get there, you need to count it joy. As I see it happening in front of me, I need to count it joy. And then we're going to show you how you can count it. We're going to show you how you can do that. But he starts out by saying you need to. And the word trials here is an interesting word. It actually is translated in the Bible as basically three words: trials, tests, and temptation. And what they're doing is, and this word actually means they're tests that are learning the character by going through excessive testing as if to find out if there's something wrong. You see, you're walking along, minding your own business. I don't know about you, but I had a good friend of mine, and he worked he was the head of the research development department and at a computer company in Irvine, well known. And he came to me and he said, Pastor, and it was a guy, one of my elders, and he said, I just feel like the Lord told me in prayer today, it's time to look for a new job. And we talked about it. I said, you're the head of research and development. You're booming. Your company's spending a lot of money. He said, I know. I just felt like God told me I need to find another job. I said, if you feel like that, then by all means, let's pray and believe and do that. He did. And literally 1 month after he found a new job, they phased out his whole division. Things happen unexpectedly. You may be here tonight and you may have lost a spouse or gone through a divorce or maybe not even found the right person. But all of that, I think, happened to us unexpectedly. And when it happens to us, James is going, I want you to realize, and this is a good part of it, we'll get to tonight. If you walk through that, something amazing happens in your life. And that's what James is trying to encourage them, because remember, we talked about it. They're suffering intense persecution. Think for a second, lift yourself out of this present environment and think what they're going through. Their families are being ripped apart. People are being dragged to the arena. They're being thrown in the arena, made fun of as they're being killed by lions. Christians are being murdered right and left, and they're running for their lives. And he writes, count it all joy. I think if I put that in perspective, I realize that my and your difficult situations are hard, but are they harder than others? Because he's telling them to do the same thing, he's be telling us to do the same. And he says, count it all joy when you meet various trials. Why? Peter says it this way, and I love Peter. I think here's what happens. When you and I are going through something, we always want to find out why. Anybody besides me go, why am I going through this? And Peter says this, beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to what? There's the word again. To test you. As though something strange were happening to you. Peter's trying to say to us what James says. Hey guys, there are things that happen that you cannot explain and cannot find a reason for. I was working at a company when I just got out of Bible college, and it was a great company. I was getting advanced quickly in it, and things were going smoothly. And we had a new boss come in. It was a as far as many different areas and departments and all throughout California. And the new boss immediately hated me. And I'm like, what is this about? What is, and he started cutting my hours, started giving me the worst hours. And I was like, what is going on? I've been a very outstanding worker, doing everything right. And we then have this, and here's what I want to talk about. We all have that inward conversation Peter needs to remind us about. Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And we may never find the answer for that. We may never be able to answer that. Because remember, we read, Jesus said the rain falls on the what? It falls randomly. And the one thing I learned as I grew in this walk of faith is I stopped trying to explain why things happen. Sometimes I don't have an answer. Why does a beautiful baby die young and someone who's living an ungodly life their child lives forever? Lives a long life. I don't have an answer. Do you? I don't think we do. And James is going, guys, these things will come upon you. But these things will come suddenly upon you. And he goes on and he says this. And he says this word, various kinds. Say with me, various kinds. And this is so important because we want to compare our lives and what's going on with us with someone else. And it's trying to tell you what I may be going through may be entirely different than what you're going through. Neither one of them is minimized. They're different. I've seen in my years of ministry, I've seen some people struggle financially their whole lives. I've seen some people struggle to have kids their whole lives. I've seen some people, my brother did not get married until he was 40 years old. And he was out there, he was a good kid. And I've watched all of this happen and I realized every one of us has different things we face. We're all different. We're all different. And when we minimize our own or someone else's, we don't realize it's all kinds of trials. The word here, various, means great diversity. Things that happen that we can't explain. And then James is going to give us, and this is so important tonight, why can I have joy when I'm going through a trial? This is what I want you to get. If you don't get anything else tonight, joy is important to have, but why? And he says in verse 3, count it all joy, my brethren, when you meet various trials, for you know, underline that word know, write it somewhere. It is not the word I just learned or I just gained knowledge. It's the word you have already learned this information by observation and experience. That's what James is saying. This is not something new I'm teaching you, but this is knowledge you already possess, I'm reminding you of. Knowing that the testing of your faith, what does it do? The word test means an interesting word. It's different than the other word. It's actually looking at it from God's vantage point. The word testing means to try and learn the genuineness of something by examination. And it is a word that is basically used for alloy, and alloy is mixed metals. And it's saying your faith, knowing this at the testing of what? Not my life, but my what? Faith. Your faith has mixture in it. And when you walk through a test, you realize, I guess there's some mixture in there. One of the places that points this out so clearly is a father brought his son to Jesus, and he said, and to his disciples. And he said to his disciples, can you help cast the devil out of my son? It's trying to kill him. And the disciples couldn't. And so he said to Jesus when he came down the mountain, he said, Jesus, I brought my child to your disciples. They couldn't do it. And Jesus said, all things are possible to him who believes. And the father said, I believe, help my what? He said, I know, I've got a mixture here. You see, adversity revealed to him, and I think these are the greatest moments in our lives when we realize, you know what? There's some things in here that I'm still struggling with. That's not a moment that God looks down and goes, shame on you. It's a moment where he goes, that's what I'm looking for you to realize there's still some things in you that are mixing some of your struggle with faith, and if you realize that, it can change. I remember at one point in my life, I was working for a church, and the church went into bankruptcy, which means we weren't getting paid, and I have 4 children that are counting on me, and I'm thinking, if this goes much longer, we're going to be on the street. And I was battling that, and finally one night I realized I'm in fear. I'm fearful, and it's changing my life. And I turned to my wife and I said, I'm afraid. And that was the most freeing moment of my life, because I realized this testing was about my faith, and I realized my faith was struggling. To acknowledge that is not something that that Jesus rebukes you for. It's actually something that he rewards. Because he said, this testing actually is going to be about your faith, but if you stay in the process, what does it produce? It produces this. That word steadfast is actually an interesting word. But before I get there, here's what I want you to see before I get that word explained. Imagine if I told you, hey, listen, Steve, you're about to go through some horrible struggle this next year. But when you come out of it, your life's going to be greater than it was before. Does that help him walk through it? Because he knows what? I'm coming out of it, and it's going to do something great in my life. What it's saying, James is saying is, guys, this thing that's happening to you, this difficult situation that is feeling like it's ripping your heart out of your soul, is actually a testing. But understand this, if you just stay in this, if you just stay connected to God, there is no bad thing that's going to come out of this in the sense of what it produces. It's going to produce steadfast. In essence, it's saying it's the byproduct of this testing. There's a product that many of you like today. How many in this room like Milk Duds? Okay? It's actually a mistake. The product was made by Hoffman Company in Chicago, and the original producers of the product were trying to make the perfectly round, chocolate-covered caramel, and they didn't succeed. So they named it Duds. What James is saying, guys, it may look like a dud, but it's going to come out great in your life. And the word steadfast is one of the most amazing words in the Bible. It's the byproduct of your faith, and here's what it means. The power to withstand hardship or stress. The power to withstand hardship or stress, especially the inward fortitude necessary to help you withstand, and the capacity continually to bear up under difficult situations. A gentleman got up in the morning, and he'd been doing it for the last month, and every morning there's this huge boulder outside his cabin. And he knows that 30 days ago, the Lord said, I want you to push that boulder up the hill. For the last 30 days, he has pushed the boulder, and it's barely moved 2 inches. Finally, on the 45th day, he has a conversation with God, and he says, God, I don't know why you asked me to waste my time pushing this boulder up this hill. It has only moved 2 inches in 45 days. And God clearly spoke back to him. It was never about the boulder. It was about making you stronger. What if our adversity and trial, which was sent by the enemy or by the world we live in because it's fallen, what if that really is not going to crush you but make you stronger? I think there's a song that goes, what doesn't kill you makes you. James is saying, listen, guys, you can count it joy because you know the end product of this struggle you're walking through is resilience. What is our young generation lacking today? Have you interacted with them? What are they lacking? Resilience. How many of you have lost 2 or 3 jobs? Raise your hand. Now, a kid today, and I have a young man that age, his friends, when they lose their job, it devastates them for weeks. What are they lacking? Resilience. What does resilient mean? Resilient mean, well, I think there's a better job out for me. I think there's another job out there. I'm going to update my resume and I'm going to send it out. And I think God's got something better for me than that last one. How many approach it like that? That's resilience, which is what is missing. And the only way you get that is through what? Lifting heavy things. How many have ever been to a athletic trainer in the room here? Anybody? Keep your hands up. Keep them up. Now, if the trainer has never pushed you beyond what you thought was capable, put your hand down. Did you enjoy it when the trainer pushed you beyond what you were capable of? You may have cussed under your breath if you're sanctified. If you're not, you may have told him so just verbally. What the are you doing? You're going to kill me. And what did your trainer say? Keep going. I know there's more in you. That's what James is saying. Remember, God lives in you. And this thing that you're going through that is horrible is testing your faith. It's not testing you. But when it does, it actually produces steadfast within you. And all of a sudden, the next time you're tested, you what? It doesn't become as difficult because what? You've gained resilience. And the next time, what happens is you're more resilient. He actually describes this in the next verse. Look at the next verses. James 1:4. And he says, and let. Here's another word. What does the word let mean? It means you have a decision. You can either stop it or you can what? Let it happen. And let steadfast have its full effect. And the word full effect here is an interesting word. It actually means here, a product produced through the efforts and activity of a trial. Let steadfast produce in you fully mature steadfastness. And when it does, when that is developed inside of you, then he says 3 words. He says what? I think it's the next one. That you may be what?
Perfect and complete.
Perfect, complete, and lacking nothing. Perfect is the word teleos. Complete is the word holokos. There are 2 different words. And here's what they're described. They're very similar. We could say they both mean complete, but they don't. Perfect means to be complete in reaching the goal or fulfilling the purpose and maturing along the way. When you become steadfast, all of a sudden you begin to mature and you're no longer shaken by the little things you were shaken by before because you've grown up. You've actually matured in your faith. And then he says the next word, and you're complete. And this word complete is an interesting word. It actually means this. It means entirely of sound state, missing no parts. Not only do you become mature, emotionally, you become more stable. And if you allow that to continue, what's the last thing he says? Lacking what? This one is crazy. It's like lacking nothing means to not possess, to possess everything that's necessary and to be deficient in nothing. Not everything that you want, but everything that's necessary. What he's really saying is this, and here's what I want you to see tonight as we put it together. As you walk through this trial, test, or suffering, something's happening on the inside of you. Steadfast is forming. And if you allow it to grow in you, it will bring you to a state of maturity where you will become sound in your soul, possessing everything you need to walk through this life. James, after he talks about holding the right viewpoint of joy and allowing steadfast, begins to talk about what happens next. And I want to get into that real quickly. And he says this, he says, now that you've walked through this, there's one more piece to this puzzle. And here's what he says. If any man lacks wisdom about what? Here's the wisdom needed. What do I do while I'm in the middle of this? That's the wisdom I need, don't you? Because there are so many opposites. Jesus rebuked his disciples because they didn't stand up and rebuke the storm. But at another time, he told them, be still and know that I'm God. How many of those are two widely different viewpoints? Am I supposed to rebuke this thing that's coming against me, or am I supposed to be still and know what's going to tell you what to do? Wisdom. I was in a situation, and it was, we were a young family, we were renting, and we had been a good renter, and we had now found another house for our family. We were moving on, and the owner came in, the renter, and he came in and he goes, he said, you guys have been horrible. And my dad was there, and I was videotaping. I'm like, this guy's challenging my integrity right here. And the Lord said, just be quiet. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm going to keep all your security deposit. And we were a young family, and when you're young, that's important. And I'm like, this is wrong, God. This is so wrong. And all of a sudden, the Lord just spoke to my heart. He said, talk to your friend, the lawyer. I said, okay. So I picked up the phone and I said, hey, man, this is what's going on, and here's what's happened, and, I don't know what to do. Remember, I was praying first, and God said, talk to my friend, the lawyer. Remember, anybody who lacks wisdom, what? Let him ask. I didn't ask everyone, hey, Steve, what do you think I should? How many know if you ask 30 people, you're going to get 30 different viewpoints, right? What's the only viewpoint you need when you're walking through a difficult situation? God's. And so I called him, and he goes, hey, here's what we're going to do. He has 30 days to give you an itemized receipt on why he took your security deposit and never returned it. He said, we're going to wait 30 days. And on the 31st day, we're going to send him a notice, because the notice says, if you don't do it, you're now liable to 3 times the amount of that security deposit. That sounds cool. So sure enough, he calls me back on the 40th day. He goes, okay, I'm ready to submit a letter. What do you want me to say? And I said, here's all I want. I want my deposit back. I know I'm entitled to 3 times, but I have to walk out of here with integrity, and that's what I feel is right. And he goes, can I attach my lawyer fee to it? And I said, absolutely. He writes him a letter. The landlord calls me, and he's screaming at me. I can't believe you as a pastor. And I said, hold it. You accused me of things that were wrong, and I kept my mouth shut, and I didn't respond to you. And now you're going to do what's right, or I can get 3 times the amount. He called the lawyer right after and said, I'm giving you the check right away. There are times in your life when what you need to hear is, James says, if any of you lack wisdom, ask God. I love it because he doesn't leave us any kind of ask wise counsel. How many know there's a need for wise counsel, right? But when you're walking through it, who is the one who knows what you're walking through better than anyone else? God. And then he says, who gives generously to all without reproach. And the word reproach means, well, Steve, I'd give it to you, but you sinned last week, so you're not getting it this week. It says God doesn't do that. God says, you need answers on how to navigate this difficult situation you're walking through. I want to give you the answers on how to do that. It says he gives generously without reproach. And I think this is a good place to stop tonight. We'll pick it up more. Has this helped you tonight a little bit? All right, go ahead and do your table talk, and then I'll come back up and pray for us.